right now, across America and across a huge swath of America, people are preparing for something that's sounding like a bit of a snowmageddon. I know every loaf of bread has been bought from the grocery store shelves. I know that people are battening down the hatches, and all sorts of prepper mentalities have been taken on here. As it sounds like a whole bunch of us are going to get a big taste of winter weather. Who better to help us prepare for that than the one and only Seth Keysor? Seth, located up there in the Great White North of the northernmost tip of Minnesota by and large. You are closer to Canadian than you are to Midwestern, I think, geographically speaking. I assume that it's also been a pretty mild winter for you guys. Right now, as we speak, I think it's like 40 outside here, but it could snow a little bit later.
I'm looking at my weather app, and I will tell you, with no wind chill, okay? So Minnesotans we don't do the wind chill, the feels like thing. I will do that for your sake in a minute. Right now, the air temperature, now this is not wind chill, this is not anything, is negative 22 degrees.
That's not right.
It doesn't feel right.
That can't
when
be
I
right.
Step outside.
What's the feels like temperature?
That would be negative 52.
No, it's not. You read it wrong. Look again.
Negative 52. Ooh, tonight it might get to negative 60 in there.
Why do you live there?
I don't know.
Fair enough.
I have no idea what today's about to bring. I wonder if any Super Bowl champion has ever benched their left tackle in 2 different games in the same season.
Everywhere.
Lights come on. I need to see it, Omar.
Someone is getting snapped.
Show it.
Jazz and I have been married for 17 years.
So, Nate, what did you think about... Let's do it, and we are at full strength. Joshua Brisco, Seth Keysor, and Nate Taylor with you here on Only Weird Games. Nate's got a cup of tea. Seth's got a couple of toes frozen off, I assume, from just going to work today. Fellas, other than cold, how are we doing?
It's so cold, man. Like, it's nothing else. I'm sorry. I'm jumping in front. It is.
No, that's why I let you do it.
Yeah. It is bad. Like, when it gets this cold, Minnesotans, we take our winters very seriously. I think I'm asked, are the trees exploding, Seth?
Yes. Can you explain? Hold on. I'm gonna just. I saw that this was news to me. Tweeted by Max Velocity on Twitter. Definitely a real guy with a real name. Exploding trees are possible in the Midwest and Northern Plains on Friday and Saturday as temperature forecasted to fall 20 degrees below zero. I assume, I haven't done any research on this, and you used a word earlier in a text that I didn't know was a factor. I assumed there was something about just like the moisture in the trees. If it freezes, then that pressure can explode. Is that real? Are you familiar with this?
I've never seen a tree explode. I've seen them break in the cold.
Fair enough.
Like, I suppose that's like a version of exploding. Like, if a branch goes to the ground next to you, you're not like, as you're impaled, you're not like, well, that wasn't really an explosion, though. Like, That's not. I mean, I probably would be, actually, now that I think about it. That's totally something I would say if I lived. Well, one thing is, like, you got to take into account, like, what's inside the tree. And some trees in other parts of the country have more tree sap in them than you're going to get here. And so that's the stuff that's really going to expand a bunch. It's one of those days where, like we try to walk Kiko every day, even during winter. And Jazz was just like, nope. And Jazz will walk Kiko up to, like, about -5. And it's like a mile
Up
walk.
to -5.
She a dog. That's
But,
what
like,
she is.
Yeah. No, Jazz got that dog in her.
Jazz got a dog in her. Taking that dog out.
And
Sorry.
so, no, you're fine. And so even like on days like this, Kiko gets cold after a little while. And so I told Jazz I would, actually, before she left. I was going to walk the dog to just like the mailbox and back. And then, she'd walk like a few hundred yards. And even then I haven't done. It's just so cold. And your heater can keep up, but it's going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Yep.
And that just is what it is. Like, because we have, like, we converted some garages into like living space. Those aren't part of, like, the heating systems. We've got space heaters in there, in addition to the floor units, and they're just not keeping up, man. They're set
Yeah,
to
light
like
a couch
65.
on fire, dude. What are you even doing? Like, this is lose-lose.
Yeah,
Space,
no, it's
space heater doing space
Well-
heater
well,
down bad worse than that poor lady that worked at what was it, Church's Chicken back in the day. Good Lord.
yeah, it's not great. It is one of those things where like there's cold. And then there's just legitimate cold that's just so different. The great thing about those, so we're going through this cold snap, and I think
Cold snap. It's Hoff outside, and says like we're going through a bit of a cold snap up here, you know.
yeah, and like so the worst it's gonna get, is negative 29, and then it's actually not going to get above 0 until Monday, where it'll be a balmy 6 degrees. And then we're back. Oh, rats.
You've done this before, Seth, but can you explain to the audience that like single digits versus negative single digits makes on where you are now?
It's really easy. So a lot of people feel like once you get like below 10 degrees, it's all the same. Yeah, it's not. And that's fine. Like if you've never experienced it, but like, you know, so people, it becomes like fake numbers. It's like the national debt, you know, it's like, it's $1 billion gajillion. Like, yeah, like
it's negative a trillion degrees.
Yeah. It means nothing. Here's what I would tell you. Did I say rats?
Yes. When you realized that you're going to get 1 day above 0, you went rats.
Beans.
Another organism that could not live outside in Minnesota. Rats.
Yeah, how squirrels make it through the winter, I have no idea. So
They gotta keep
try
moving.
to get people to
They're all in
figure
my
this out,
yard, actually. Yeah.
like when it's negative, so it's going to be negative 29. We'll round up to negative 30, 1 whole degree. Okay. The feels like is going to be probably around negative 60. Okay. And that feels like matters because it's going to be windy. And when it's windy, like if it's not windy, it's awful. It's still awful. But if wind gets in there, it's hard to not get depressed during cold snaps. Like it's genuinely difficult because you really can't go outside. You got to run your car for half an hour. You got to run your car if you're going anywhere or not, unless you got a heated garage. So here's how I tell people that think that it's all basically the same once you're south of 10 degrees or so. The difference between 10 degrees and negative 30 is the same thing as the difference between a 90-degree day and a 50-degree day. Now, I know you knew that. Like, we all know math. But I want you to think about how different 90 degrees feels from 50 degrees. There is that much of a difference between 10 degrees and negative 30, and it's genuinely awful. My feet, I'm actually, you know what? I've got my Hey Dudes in my office here. I'm going to slide my Hey Dudes on because my socks just aren't cutting it. So that's like a pro move. You have your slippers or inside shoes, and that keeps your feet from touching the floor. And it's kind of like in places where it gets to be like 115 degrees or whatever. You don't go outside much. You can't. It hurts. It just hurts. So that the key is like 2 or 3 days is fine. Like it's not great. It's when it's a week or longer is just really tough on the soul. Like that is like, it's just tough.
Did you say longer than a week?
Oh yeah. Last February, we had a 2-week cold snap where it didn't get above 0. That was a bummer. I'm okay.
I think what I would consider in that instance, Seth, is maybe warming up your car in the garage with the garage door closed and just kind of waiting to warm up that way.
And that's...
Hey, don't do that. Hey, PSA, don't do that, everybody. That was a joke. Don't do that. That was a joke for a podcast, not...
Thank you for someone pointing this out. Lou, is it possible Seth is feeling it worse because he's skinny now? Dude, I'm dying this winter. It's awful.
That's a great question.
Like, because I'm still, by the way, still at 200. You know, I think my body's kind of gotten used to it, except Jazz was gone, and I did what I always do. She went overnight. I did what I always do and eat a ton of food, right?
No!
And so I'm not built the way I used to be built. I got myself at Pizza Ranch a pizza and then a cactus spread thing. And I used to be able to house both of those bad boys at medium.
In one sitting.
And now, I mean, like I got like 3/4 of the way through. It was a respectable showing. And I was just struggling.
It's a build up towards the Super Bowl, Seth. It's just going to take time. You just got to get there.
So it's cold, but I'm here and I'm ready to talk. I'm sorry I missed Tuesday. I appreciate you guys carrying the load. I am ready to do 85% of the talking because honest to God, it's what's keeping me alive right now.
Well, we're going to have to get your usage rate down a little bit to average out down to a mere 85 over the rest of the show. But listen, I asked. This is not an instance where it's like, hey, Seth, how are you doing? In this instance, it was like, hey, Seth, how are you doing? Like with the real investment of a real friend.
It is. I appreciate that. And I got to tell you, when you walk into a cold snap and it's already been a tough series of months, I say this because I've had multiple commenters be like, is Seth okay? Look, there's been some tough months. I'm doing better. And then the cold snap hit and I'm like, yeah, am I doing better? I think I'm doing better.
This is, I don't think this is how you're supposed to do it, but actually, Seth, this is an intervention. We are doing an intervention with the entire podcast audience. We figured that might be the thing that would motivate you. We think you need to gain 50 pounds and just get through the winter like a bear. Just full on hibernation, fat bear week. Like you can be skinny in the spring.
Don't go
just
outside.
Eat now. Don't go outside.
Don't go outside.
And just then you don't have to eat anymore for several months.
I don't hate it because I'm trying to imagine the way I would eat for the next month to put back on the 40 pounds I've lost. Oh, that'd be amazing. That'd be so amazing. But, I've seen pictures and videos now of what I looked like at 240. And if I were Jazz, I'd probably go. If I put the weight back on, she's not shallow, but she'd be like, nope.
Go where, Seth? It's negative 50 degrees outside.
Great point.
That is a solid point.
Speaking of getting back together with a former love because of convenient circumstances, let's talk about the Chiefs. It was a long road. Let's talk about the Chiefs reuniting with Eric Bieniemy. As you mentioned, Seth, Nate and I did talk about this quite a bit on Tuesday. We found out we were each other's accountability partners. Much accountability was had. Nate, it's still not like team announced official. Is there anything else that anyone needs to know before Seth gets to talk about him for a minute?
It's player announced official. We've gotten reactions.
Yeah, that's right. Travis Kelce said it's happening.
Yeah, we've gotten reactions for Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Chris Jones is excited. So look, players have announced that this is official. He is back in the facility. We can make that distinction as well. He is right back to work. It's crazy how fast these things have to happen in terms of like, all right, now you got to get your arrangements in terms of moving and family stuff and all that. But no, he was based on my understanding, he was in the facility yesterday. I think he was in there today as well. Just getting used to the old chair, as I used to say. And then lastly, with the reaction from the players in the Chiefs. Not putting this out there yet, even though it's well known now. A couple people did ask me when we would hear from Eric Bieniemy. And I'm not sure when that's going to happen because we are not in season, of course. Usually the head coach, the general manager, the team president of football operations, and maybe your own owner talk during this time of year. The Chiefs are a little different. So I think we might not get official public comments until the combine, whether that's Andy Reid publicly saying as to why he, wanted to rejoin Eric Bieniemy in football marriage, and maybe we'll get Eric Bieniemy's reaction to be back on staff either right before the combine or during the combine in Indianapolis. So if you're keeping notes, I think that's a month from now. So I just want to prepare people for like, hey, I'm ready to hear Eric Bieniemy. I'm ready to hear his new ideas and what he's going to do. And like, da-da-da-da. Well, there's no OTAs. They did not change the head coach. I don't think Clark Hunt's getting anywhere near a microphone based on yesterday. And I don't think we'll hear from Bieniemy at least for a little while.
Well, Nate's referring to, I assume most of the audience knows, but the Buffalo Bills had a humdinger of a press conference, and we will talk about that a little bit because it's fascinating on a variety of levels. But Seth, again, we went through a lot of it yesterday. You heard some of Tuesday's show.
The comments are great. The comments are great.
the upside here we've covered pretty well, I think, and the Chiefs will tell you what the upside is for Eric Bieniemy. You know, the players are excited. He's a guy who had real success with this offense previously, and I don't know. There are a couple of things that I think you kind of co-signed from our Tuesday show, but you wrote about this in the Chief from the North newsletter. You can subscribe, and Seth will pay you $10 a day or whatever. I don't know. You can go check it out, mnchiefsfan.substack.com. I don't remember the details. He doesn't either because it's cold. What about this hiring, pun intended, I suppose, did leave you a little bit chilly? This was not an exciting move in your book. It's to say nothing of Eric Bieniemy for who he is, but why was this not the move that you were rooting for?
It's funny because my initial reaction in the group text messaging was pretty strong. The group text messaging. Oh, I'm just so old. Here's the deal. One of the things that had me not excited about them hiring back Eric Bieniemy had nothing to do with Eric Bieniemy. Like, actually, my biggest objection to them bringing back Eric Bieniemy had nothing to do with Eric Bieniemy as a coach. Mm-hmm. It was more of the same. It was representative of, we have the answers in this building, where based on what we saw last season, they might not have the answers in the building. And
my video is just going to look like this for a little bit, and I appreciate nobody drawing attention to it.
I already just texted you.
my StreamYard was being a little finicky, and
yeah.
All right, sorry about that, Seth. Say, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us from the original Tron. And so here's the big thing. You actually look like a character doing like a playback video for characters in a horror movie. They're playing the video of the guy that died in that same cabin 50 years ago. That's you right now.
I was gonna say there's kind of a cherubic Christmas thing going on now. Like I could be singing like the song in Whoville.
Yeah.
Anyway, Seth, you were really on a roll, and then I did the equivalent of that time you blew yourself on the stream.
I looked blue, everyone. Like,
yeah. He
was blue to yourself, yeah.
Yep. So, my biggest concern with Bieniemy had nothing to do with Bieniemy. It had everything to do with a lack of new ideas. And I acknowledged even at the time that he's been in Ben Johnson's system for the last year. I'm sure particularly in the run game, he's picked up some stuff from there. But it's not bringing in an entirely new idea person. There's no one who thinks that Eric Bieniemy has his own offensive system that's like very different from what Andy Reid does. And that to me was problematic. I loved the idea of, a guy like Stefanski, who of course now got a head coaching job, but like a guy who comes from like the Kubiak tree, or a guy who comes from the Shanahan tree or McVay tree, or Cliff Kingsbury, who's kind of made his own iteration of the spread offense. I love the idea of someone coming in with something entirely different, and through that, maybe helping Andy revamp the offense with some of these offenses that have had a lot more success in recent years than what Andy Reid's offense has had. Because at the end of the day, we're 3 years in a row of the offense ranging somewhere in the average-ish range. Maybe a little better, maybe a little worse, but dependent on the opponent. Sure, they had an incredible run in certain respects in 2023 in the playoffs. They had a few great playoff games, one-off game plans, all that stuff. But the offense as a whole has been quarterbacked by Patrick Mahomes and has been average. That's not okay. There's a lot of systems that have been better with a worse quarterback. And okay, we blamed the left tackle situation. Okay, we blamed the wide receiver situation. Well, this year, and we talked about this in their most healthy games. Josh, you and I talked about this last week. Yep. The offense didn't do what it was supposed to do. Now, here's the deal. Well, you know what? No, I'm going to circle back as to why I'm not as upset now. I was upset because it's like, oh, okay, status quo. We have all the answers. We're just a tick off. It just felt so familiar. It felt like, no, all we need is someone to help us execute our vision better, and then it'll be fine. And there's some truth that, like, execution needs to be better. Attention to detail needs to be better. All that stuff. But there's also truth in the fact that you're running digs less than most successful NFL offenses right now, even though that's an intermediate man coverage beater, and that's something you struggled with. Like, they needed new things. The run game has looked rough for several years now. Some of the attention to detail.
I think the word you're looking for is unimaginative.
Unimaginative, executed poorly. There's just been problems with it. So I get the idea of, okay, Eric Bieniemy's got success with that. We trust him with our running backs. But I mean, generally speaking, by the way, the offensive line coach is kind of the guy that's more the power that be with the run game. That's just something worth noting. And I want so badly to follow up on the hand gesture Nathan is making, but I'm not going to.
Yeah,
because
I think you should. I'm curious.
So Nathaniel, I see you giving me the Dikembe Mutombo right now, as I brought up the fact that your run game coordinator is generally your offensive lineman. Like, they don't usually have that title, but the person who's handling the run game is often the offensive line coach. One might think that with some of the struggles the Chiefs have had with that longtime offensive line coach Andy Heck, who's been rumored to be thinking about retirement, like they've been showing blame in other places. They didn't just get rid of the running backs coach. They got rid of the assistant running backs coach, which that's how you know you're like, whoa. They were like, when Andy said in his final thing, the run game wasn't good enough, like, man, he meant it.
Yes,
okay?
Yes, he did. That was the only honest thing he said in that entire press conference. And it really sticks out more and more as we get further into the offseason. Yes.
And so is there anything you want to elaborate on the Dikembe Mutombo, or should I just keep rolling?
When things looked a certain way, when things were imaginative and dynamic and diverse and building off certain blocks to where you could dictate where the defense was going to go, mesh, but accountability is incredible. It's called counter, but with accountability.
I'm going to circle back to that, like once we're done here, because that's really funny.
GT counter on ability on 2. Let's go. Pin pull on 2 on accountability. It did look better when Eric Bieniemy was working alongside Andy Heck in the postseason, building on certain concepts they had been working on all year. Now, did either one of them have run game coordinator necessarily attached to them from a title standpoint? No, but their running game was more dynamic when Andy Heck and Eric Bieniemy were working in concert together toward that common goal.
Interesting. And so that's good to know. And maybe there's the ability to work together on that stuff. I don't have a lot of commentary on Andy Heck. I know the way he's viewed within the league is a lot higher than how he's viewed by a lot of Chiefs fans. So I don't know what to do with that. So that was the mesh with accountability joke summed up my fears with Eric Bieniemy. This idea that for the 4th year in a row, really the 5th year in a row, you were going to see pretty much an identical offense. Again, thinking that you are going to, even despite Patrick Mahomes' comments, which I probably should have known better with Mahomes being willing to say things like that. But I was genuinely afraid, oh man, what I viewed it was, and this is a slippery slope argument, so it's not a great way to think, because that's what happens when we let our fears dictate how we think. I'm becoming so emotionally healthy, guys. The thing that I saw was, okay, they're going to bring back Bieniemy. They're going to bring back Greg Lewis to coach the wide receivers. They are going to promote from within for the running backs coach, and literally no new voices are going to be in the room other than Bieniemy and his 1 year with Chicago. That's going to be the new ideas in the room. And here's the thing. I like the 1 year in Chicago. That's great, especially a guy that speaks the same language. Like that's all excellent stuff. But if that's it, that's a real problem, and it represented a continuation of the hubris that I think really cost them this year. No, we don't need to address the running back room. Isaiah's going to come back and look way better than he did last year. It's just going to happen because everything works out for me. No. As soon as we get all 3 wide receivers healthy and on the field at the same time, it's going to look unbelievable. Everything's just going to pop, even though it has looked kind of stilted and hasn't really fooled defenses for a year and a half now, just because things work out for us. No. Like, this is all just going to work out for us because things just work out for us. The D-line, it's just going to be better this year. Omenahu's going to come back better. Karlaftis is going to come back better. Dana's going to come back better. It's not going to matter that we lost Treshaun Wharton. It's just hope. It's not a plan. It's hubris thinking that, this time it'll be different. Now, here's the deal. That was my issue with the Bieniemy hire. I like the more good coaches you have in the building, the better off you are. I think Eric Bieniemy, in his specific roles that he's played in Kansas City, has been a good coach.
Yes.
So that's a good thing. But not having Newrams, what it represented to me, scared me. And then they went out and hired a guy from completely outside their tree, who has outside of Andy Reid's tree, who has like some ties with Brad Childress, but that's it. And a guy who has been in the league for 20 years. I'm talking about Chad O'Shea. And a guy who, when Julian Edelman is on a podcast saying, like a good wide receiver coach, like Chad O'Shea, here's what he'd do. Like, if Julian Edelman's calling someone a good wide receiver coach, he's probably a good wide receiver coach. Mm-hmm. If Rob Gronkowski's calling someone a good wide receiver coach, he's probably a good wide receiver coach. If Jason Dunn is saying a guy is a good coach, he's probably, I mean, these are enough players, and players love their coaches. But what Julian Edelman was describing, if you haven't seen it, I think Maddie Lane tweeted out, I think all of us might have retweeted it. Edelman talking about grinding film. He wasn't even talking about Chad O'Shea. This was months ago, maybe even years ago. I don't even remember. He was appearing on a podcast, and he's always a good listen. He was talking about what a good wide receiver coach will do, and he brought up Chad O'Shea, and he talked about how O'Shea he would show him these series of like 15, 20, 25 clips of how a corner defended a certain look in the run game, how he utilized his right hand, and like what you saw with his like right foot when he's doing it. That right there, that is, I've been in the NFL for a decade and I know how to find edges stuff. And that's stuff that the wide receiver room did not have last year. So a guy that's worked under Belichick for a decade, worked with a ton of wide receivers, is a grown bleeping man in the room who can look at the other wide receivers. And maybe Rashee Rice is like, man, I don't got to listen to you. I've got 2 Super Bowl rings, even though, no, he's only got 1. I've got one. I've got a Super Bowl ring. I helped save that season. And Chad O'Shea can say, wow, 1, that's adorable. I've got as many as Patrick Mahomes. Like, having an adult in the room, and I do feel bad. Like, I'm not looking to dance on anyone's grave. It is tough to have authority when you're working with grown men. That can be tough. He brings with him 2 decades of experience, and he's completely outside the system, right? He's worked under Stefanski a ton, who's more the Kubiak tree. He's worked for multiple offensive coordinators, including McDaniels, who's a good offensive coordinator. Has a very different system than Andy Reid. Bill Belichick morphed that offense multiple times. He has done a lot in the league. And again, he's just a wide receivers coach. Let's not get crazy. But what that did for me was, okay, that slippery slope fear has been dealt with a little bit. So now it's like, okay, I'm willing to see what else they do. They just promote from within, or do they bring in a running back coach that hasn't been in the building for the last 3 or 4 years? Do they bring in someone who's completely new overall? Because the NFL is, just on a side note, the NFL is different than what it was in 2018. The NFL is different with how defenses are playing than how they were in 2020 or 2021. You're seeing this pendulum shift. So I'm willing to at least, I still, the Bieniemy hire, that's not the route I would have gone. What the Bieniemy hire screams to me is Andy Reid says, no, I know the offense needs adjusting. I know what to do, though. I need someone to help me execute that vision, and EB is my guy. The hiring of Chad O'Shea is what got me to the first part. I know something needs to change. That's my hope, is that, okay, better running back coach stuff going on, depending on who they bring in, but EB can help with that. And then better wide receiver coaching. It's a new idea. So I'm still, because you asked me what I was cold about. And then of course I just ran right through any stop signs and talked about
it's understandable that you ran to warmth in the face of your negative 60-degree wind chill, but it was not what I asked you for. Go ahead, Nate.
What you're I think what we're getting at ultimately is an infusion of experience. Bieniemy has already been an offensive coordinator. I'm not saying they're the same player, same comp in terms of coaching, but like there's a reason why I guess Mike Vrabel could have given somebody their first chance as an offensive coordinator. But in his, second chance with the Patriots with a rookie quarterback going into year 2, said, I know someone who has experience and, similar to what Seth said, is going to get the job done the way I want it to get done, and I have a lot of faith and trust in this person. It just so happens it was the same offensive coordinator when he was a player for the Patriots, when Tom Brady was a player, and, of course, having his own head coaching experience, Josh McDaniels is now a significant reason why Drake May has seen quite a leap from year 1 to year 2. The Chiefs are hoping to have similar effects, not just with Bieniemy in that regard, but obviously with O'Shea And I would have to believe that whoever the running back coach is going to be will have an experience, which is an opposite of what happened based on some of the, the pillaring that comes with having great success as the NFL's newest dynasty, where, hey, I'm going to give Connor Embry a shot. I'm going to give Todd Peaston a legitimate shot at coaching a position group in the NFL. Those decisions were gambles in a different manner. They did not work out in a 2 to 3 year experiment. So now, if you have more coaches who are willing to work together, have more experience, know what they're talking about, can explain the why in the details to the players, then that's the gamble that Andy Reid is making now, in hopes that even though it's not the most alluring coaching hire, it is one that is understandable and one that he feels like can get the team back to playing more disciplined football. See, you thought I was going to say accountability, didn't you? You thought I was going to say accountability. Nope. Tendency breaker. Discipline.
A lot of my follow-ups are going to sound kind of critical, and I don't really mean for it to. I've just found myself pretty happy to play devil's advocate on this, whichever the way the wind is blowing. Because I just think there's plenty of room for all of it here, where you say, like, okay, they're going to bring in, I'm excited about the O'Shea hire. I think it's a good move, and I think pivoting out of your, like, hey, maybe this young guy's going to be able to coach his wide receiver room, and after 3 years, you go, you know what, let's get a guy who's done it for 20 years. That makes sense. That's what I would have done. I'm happy with that hire. I think that makes sense. Seth, you're putting a lot of hope on the wide receivers coach for an offense that we're all like that. Yeah, hiring Eric Bieniemy does underline the fact this is Andy Reid's offense, and maybe Andy's going to go through a little evolution, but it's not like he's handing the keys over to anybody else. We're saying, well, maybe if Chad O'Shea comes in and brings some new ideas, like that feels a little bit like a hope, so to speak, rather than a plan. I mean, maybe I hope that this 20-year NFL wide receivers coach is going to bring some freshness. Or again, the idea, like, well, we're gonna batten down the hatches by correcting the mistakes that were made 3 years ago, and that they weren't changed last offseason. I go, look, I know you made the Super Bowl, but if you're in that room, do you know if your wide receivers coach is the guy for the job? Do you know if your running backs coach is the guy for the job? And now here we are in the 2026 beginning of this offseason. Those changes are being made. It feels like we're giving the Chiefs credit for hitting Control Z. Like we're just undoing this, and we're bringing in an experienced, familiar face to be the offensive coordinator, which is what they did 3 years ago with Matt Nagy. So again, like those coaches aren't the same, but the process is, and so I have a little bit of a hard time really being generous about the process, even though I do still think the Bieniemy and O'Shea hires are both like I understand how you got there.
Right. The difference, I think, Josh, is that, okay, and I'm only using the Patriots as an example because they are still playing football, ladies and gentlemen, and it is the most important position in North American sports. That offense that, Drake May was introduced to and was told to run, and hey, here's Jacoby Brissett, go watch him do it as best he can. Well, that's a different offense. That's a different system. And I think that's the friction, right? Whereas, hey, I'm Mike Vrabel. I got the best out of Ryan Tannehill. You know what I'm going to do for you, too? I'm going to bring in, a guy who got the best out of Tom Brady, right? And knows what it's like to be the quarterback for the Patriots and has a lot of institutional knowledge of how it's going to help you go from this is what we did with year 1, year 2 with, I know I'm just saying names, but like Matt Castle. Here's what we did with, obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo from year 1 to year 2. I can do similar things because we know you have a lot of talent. It also helps if you sign Stephon Diggs and he hopefully stays out of trouble. So there's obviously, this is why we love the sport, right? Because it's so complex. Every little thing matters. You're hoping that you can get a similar result out of Xavier Worthy, Tyquan Thornton, Rashee Rice, even though the offense will more than likely be similar in a sense where it's like, okay, I'm not taking, everything that Gerard Mayo said, it's going out the door. That's the slight difference here, but you're hoping that, like, man, people come away next year and saying, like, Xavier Worthy is capable of being a full-fledged complete receiver because he's now showing it for at least 1 year in the NFL. And that'll be the great thing for Drake May is he has shown he can be a franchise quarterback for 1 year. And now it's about how you build upon that. But your position coach is totally supposed to get the best out of you if you stay healthy, if you understand the reasons and the whys of why you're doing things in practice, on game day, adjusting for the opponent. Those are all the things you're hoping to see. The one problem is that there's the Andy Reid of it all, and it really only does come down to how much of his system is going to change. Only really one person knows who that is or how much of that is actually going to happen. And we won't know that, ladies and gentlemen, until September. Like I think that's what could drive people crazy is I might see something in OTAs and like that just might be an idea bubble. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're going to see in September. So you won't really know how much the offensive system has changed until you have, 4 games of tape for the month of December, and you can start to compare and contrast from previous years. Only one man knows that, and I guess maybe 2 now because, again, the conversations have started to happen with Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. And, again, what are those ideas? What are those projects that Andy Reid will give Bieniemy for Bieniemy to present, study, and give his own sort of thoughts and to see how much Andy Reid is willing to implement them with, player support or whatever. The problem is that it's not a full-on coaching change and it's not a full-on system change. So it really only comes down to one person. And I think that's why it can be worrisome for Seth and for fans. And I completely understand why.
Seth, I want to know what does give you a little bit of pause there. I want to make sure we have time to talk about the state of the Buffalo Bills. We'll do all of that after this timeout.
Heather Luce, broker owner, KC Local Homes, and Emprise Bank has been a great partner for us. They're our partner in Possible. Debbie and I hit it off immediately, and she was one of the first bankers that I would say sat down with me and actually genuinely cared about my story and where I was coming from and what I was trying to do, not just what kind of loan do you need, how much equity do you have, and she really kind of laid out my options for me and just made the process make sense, and I felt comfortable with it. Start to talk about it and think about it, a building popped up that I wanted, that I could afford, and it was in a great area. And so they really guided me through the SBA. I used the SBA loan to acquire it and really guided me through that process and made it happen. I think that we talk about that a lot, where we wouldn't have a business. We wouldn't have what we have here if we didn't have the clientele that we do. I've always functioned out of a people over profits mentality. The houses sell themselves, right? Like, I'm here to help people and facilitate the transaction for them.
Hey, what's happening, people? It is Benny Heiss, KCSN betting analyst. And while the Chiefs may not be in the playoffs, that doesn't mean there is not plenty of action to go around for the rest of you that are still crazy fans of the National Football League. And with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, it makes every playoff moment feel bigger. So whether you're looking at individual matchups in the wild card, or for a possible Super Bowl matchup, or for futures come postseason time, DraftKings has your back, and they also have your back with early exit protection. If the player in your eligible NFL prop goes down at any point in the first half, guess what? You can still get paid in cash. What an opportunity. What a way to be able to enjoy the playoffs and not worry about anybody that you include in those props going down, especially early on, and ruining the rest of all of your legs. So here's what you do. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use the code KCSN, that is code KCSN, to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Remember, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. You must be 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
This is not breaking news. It's just news to me because I turned off some of my push notifications after the season ended. Jesse Minter, the new head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. I hadn't seen that. It happened before the show began. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, that's, you know what, I firing John Harbaugh That was surprising. That was a pretty big swing, but the Ravens did hire like a good head coaching candidate and didn't burn the entire city down in the process. That makes sense for an AFC contender.
Hey, Josh. We can now squarely put the Baltimore Ravens still in the category of trying to win a Super Bowl. Some of these other teams are trying to do other things. But hey,
I honest to goodness thought you were going to say that they're in the category for teams who could hire Matt Nagy, who has interviewed for the Eagles OC job. If that's new to you as well.
Yeah, and I do. I said what was this on Tuesday? I said I wasn't sure if Matt Nagy was going to get another head coaching job. I do feel more confident that he would get a offensive coordinator job. So given his experience, given what he brings to the table, I know Chiefs fans may feel
experience and accountability.
Here we go.
You said what he brings to the table. What does he bring? The Chiefs couldn't get him out of the door quick enough. What does he bring to the table? I like Matt Nagy more than everyone commenting about Matt Nagy, and I'm still confused. What am I supposed to believe here? Is he a genius or a moron? I read one YouTube comment. Depends on what day it was.
Yeah, guys, Twitter's not everything. It's okay. Take a deep breath. He's not a moron. He's not a moron. He's a very good coach.
I think he's a reasonable head coaching candidate. I truly do. But the OC who was here before him is going to turn the whole ship around. This is the process I have a problem with.
Well, fair. I think as of right now, he probably has a better shot to get an offensive coordinator job than a head coaching job. I'm just trying to keep you guys well informed as best I can. The other thing too is that I think I told this on Tuesday as well. Like Jesse Mentor and Brian Flores were my best. Like if you are trying to win and trying to go in a different direction, these are your best candidates. It looks like right now, especially after we realized Mike McDaniel was cool not being a head coach or was cool just not even talking to the Arizona Cardinals. Like, you know what, Cleveland Browns, I've been there before. I'm good. So if he's chosen that route, then hey, that again, this hiring cycle's had a lot of twists and turns that we don't normally see in the NFL. But hey, Jesse Minter's a very good coach, very deserved. And I know this might sound wild, but Matt Nagy not running the offense, they running out there in Philly. So if Philly wants to see improvement out of Jalen Hurts, I mean, he got Mitchell Trubisky to play well, guys. I think sometimes we forget that,
You mean former coach of the year, Matt Nagy?
That's right, exactly. Hey, guys, there were 2 games this year where the Eagles couldn't complete a pass in the second half. I don't think that's going to be a problem if Matt Nagy is the offensive coordinator in Philly, even though people were outraged that he got an interview there. And I'm like, did you see their offense? They have AJ Brown and they have problems. They could also use some different coaching as well.
I too have often applied for jobs with my tagline on my resume being, because your current one's so bad, I might be a little better.
And it's worked out for you quite well.
More or less. Yeah, I don't even remember how we went down the Matt Nagy road. I'm going to be honest. Normally I ask something here.
Because Josh has legitimate fair.
Yeah, that I got distracted by the Ravens news.
Yes. And you've got legitimate. I agree that there's legitimate concerns to the process. I don't think Chad O'Shea is going to come in with all the ideas. Bringing in someone from outside makes me think, okay, they recognize that there's a significant change needed.
You said all this. What gives you pause?
I already said what gives me pause. Didn't I? Did I not? Did I immediately go to optimistic?
You did a lot of the pros, and what I said before the break is that I want to hear what you do have some hesitations about, or why this isn't the road that you would have gone down.
Correct. Well, I mean, you look at what Bieniemy's done when he's been in charge of an offense outside of Andy Reid, and it's not good. And then the fact is, people can show stats next to each other all they want, and I do understand that. I would just say 2018, Andy Reid was primarily the driver of an offense that was different from even what it was in 2017. And Mahomes was throwing to the Avengers. And the league had never seen anything like Mahomes. Go back and rewatch that 2018 stuff. Teams didn't know what to do. 2019, kind of a...
They were putting linebackers on Sammy Watkins.
Yeah, they're getting... And you're throwing to 2018 through 2021. You're throwing to apex Travis Kelce and apex Tyreek Hill, with generally pretty solid offensive lines. Generally an okay running back room overall, even though it's not quite what you'd want, but you've got some guys in there that can at least, like, I'll take those iterations of Spencer Ware over what the Chiefs had last year. Spencer Ware could have come in and looked so good last year compared to how things looked. So there's that. And then in 2022, you had them modifying their offense, and they got still peak Travis Kelce, the best year of MVS's career, the best year of Juju Smith-Schuster's career since, his knees kind of started to slow him down. You had a good overall offensive line. It's all been very advantageous situations. And then again, there's not a new system that's coming with him. Like, Bieniemy doesn't have his own system. He's not going to be, I have ideas for how to completely, revamp our passing attack. And so as much as you can have hope about the run game stuff and his time in Chicago, I mean, how much of that is Ben Johnson and how much of that can you duplicate outside of Ben Johnson? There's been a lot of Andy Reid disciples that have gone somewhere else, and they're not Andy Reid. And so those are all the reasons that give you pause, because it's not new, not definitively actually new. And that definitely gives me pause.
All right, let's talk about the Bills.
Yes.
There's the vegetables I needed you to eat so we can talk about the Bills. You may or may not have seen the press conference that followed was really where this thing took a real turn. Sean McDermott was fired, and that was like, that is status quo surprising. It is surprising in the NFL to get fired after the divisional round of the playoffs. Like, that doesn't happen very often. But we all know also the storied history of the Buffalo Bills. And I think I might have mentioned this on Tuesday. I definitely talked about this on Everything Else on Monday. I think Patrick Mahomes fired Sean McDermott and John Harbaugh, and maybe kind of Mike Tomlin. But specifically Harbaugh and McDermott, this was the year the Chiefs weren't in the way. This was the year you didn't have to beat Patrick Mahomes to get to the Super Bowl. And instead, it's Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, and Drake May. I'm not going to give Jarrett Stidham the credit for the entire season and playoff run there. But
those legs are going to be so healthy. Oh,
fresh legs. The freshest legs.
Oh,
the freshest legs you've seen since Matt Moore. So I think that, that's what makes that domino fall. And so the Bills make a coaching change, and it's like a little bit surprising, but specifically you can understand it. I would have been more likely to fire him last season than this season, I think. But that's because of injuries and the state of the roster. So when Brandon Beane got a promotion in this whole deal, that was surprising. When he went out there for a press conference with owner Terry Pegula, and they began taking questions from the media, that's when the fireworks really began. Also including, still on the roster, Keon Coleman as a frequent topic of discussion. You guys can just pick what stands out. We can take turns picking a favorite part of the press conference or the Bills' whole situation right now. Nate, what was your favorite part? Watching, I assume, through your fingers, covering your eyes, which is kind of how I was doing it, going, oh no, you're not supposed to say that. That's crazy. What stood out to you?
There were multiple people that reached out to me like, are you seeing this? And I had Holly watch clips, because that's when it's reached a certain level. You're like, I gotta see this. I gotta show this to the wife. I think the thing that jumps out to me the most is a reporter asking Brendan Beane a legitimate question. And God bless Terry McCoy, who is just like, actually, like the just, can I cut in, blow through your question like it doesn't even matter. Let me tell you about Keon Coleman. And I just said, what? Sir. That was the best part, was the Pegula just doing something that he thought probably looked and sounded cooler than in actuality. And you just don't ever see that from a principal owner in a press conference, where I know both people have said, like, hey, here's Keon Coleman, let me drive him over, let me roll back, let me drive him over again. The Keon Coleman of it all kind of tells you how wild it is, because he would not matter if he played running back. Wouldn't matter if he played tight end. Wouldn't matter if he was a cornerback, even though
there are plenty of bad draft picks that didn't get brought up in that.
There's a reason why you guys are still playing Trey out there, right? There's a reason why Trey is still out here trying to guard people half his age in the NFL on a gotta have a third down in overtime. Oh, that's right, because the guy that you just promoted to team president of football operations can't find a single cornerback that is functional in a Sean McDermott system, which is like his entire expertise. But if Keon Coleman played any other sport, he wouldn't matter. Or any other position, I should say. But because he plays receiver, and playing receiver in the NFL is hard, especially with his tools, with his skills and his tools and just the overall body frame. And he's a good athlete, but we knew this in the combine. We knew this in the draft that like Keon Coleman was not some like freak athlete. Because he plays receiver, it just points back to like just how difficult it can be to manage the expectations of a franchise quarterback when it's not Keon Coleman's fault that the quarterback had 4 turnovers. And yet the owner feels compelled, Josh, to say that we didn't even want Keon Coleman. What?
Sometimes the way Clark Hunt deals with his appearances can be frustrating because you'd love to hear more. I mean this when I tell people, because there's people that have had issues with Hunt and they want him to do this, they want him to do that. I would bet good money that if you put Clark Hunt in some form of competition with the other 30 other NFL owners, that involved various testing of mental acuity, communication skills, people skills, like just basically competence. I'm pretty confident you might end up. Clark is top 10. Zero question. I think he might hit top 5 because it's hard to remain. And look, I'm saying this a very specific thing, and I don't mean more by this. It's hard to remain competent in all areas when you're a billionaire. And you're surrounded by, you know what I mean? Like, no one ever tells you you're wrong. Like, I would be...
Unless it's another billionaire in the room that says, well, wait.
And that's why they can't handle conflict, because no one... It is similar. Like, you won't even, like... It's the same reason I try to give grace to, like, 25-year-old pro athletes who are shocked when they get criticized because everyone's been telling them they're God's gift to humanity since they were 14. It's hard to be a decent human being when that's your life. Like, you know what I mean? That's why, like, the fact that Patrick Mahomes is as good a dude as he is from all appearances, it's like, holy crap, I'd be the worst. If I was that good at everything.
But think about this. They have a similar origin, which is not only did their father set them on a path to see everything that is surrounded and everything that comes with the responsibility, but even those two guys were like, here's where the faults are, here's where the potholes are. Here's like, it's not just that like Jim Irsay lived in this. Do you know Jim Irsay's father? Like, there's a difference between him and Lamar Hunt in the same way that, like, hey, my father, obviously, and even, you know, his godfather, Patrick's godfather, LaTroy Hawkins, took time to explain to him everything that comes with being a professional athlete so that when he got the opportunity based on his talent, he was normal compared to most.
Right. And it's tough when you're used to just having total control of every room you're in. Honestly, like even stupid things, like I've had to learn, I'm not in control of hardly anything. And I actually had to have it pointed out to me that the way I was handling conflict was like a lawyer. And not just like a lawyer, but a lawyer who's used to telling people what they need to do to solve a problem and then expecting like kind of obedience, right? Like if I tell someone that is like, hey, okay, this is what you got to do, but like I expect them to handle because I'm their lawyer and like, hey, let's not violate the law, government. You know what I mean? Like I expect that. And that's just me, someone with no power whatsoever. People with all this money, all this power, it's just tough. And that's where you have that moment where Brandon Beane, and I have something to say regarding Brandon Beane. I don't think he wanted the owner to say those things because, and I'm not saying out of like the because he's such a good dude, but we'll
purely
come back
perception.
to that. Yeah. But he had no choice when he's like, can I break in here? That's not actually a question.
Correct.
That's like, oh no, I'd rather you didn't because you're about.
It's like when Nate asks if he can say something on this show.
Yeah. It's rhetorical. Yeah, it's like when I'm like, hey, can I talk about marriage? It's like I'm not really asking. Like,
oh, I just realized left to right here. I'm Sean McDermott. Damn.
Yep. BJ's blaming you if this goes wrong. So, so here's the reason, and I actually wrote about this, the rare non-Chiefs article. The reason Brandon Beane didn't want him to say that is because Brandon Beane, I think, is probably sharp enough to know that there's video of him saying, like, oh, man, I'm glad Keon Coleman ran a slow 40, so it'd be easier to get him. Okay, fine. Bills fans were like, oh, well, that could have meant anything. That could have meant, I can tear after him in the third now. But then the coaching staff really pushed for it. But it turns out in today's world where there's a lot of team-made stuff, when you're on camp being like, oh, no, I went to bed that night knowing it was Keon unless someone blows this way. And he's in the draft room where they're asking about what they're going to do next day. And you know who didn't say a word? Sean McDermott. And in the meantime, Brandon Beane.
He might well be Billy Beane.
Billy Beane. Brandon Beane, who, by the way, like does things like the chomping on food and the long pauses and the kind of there's a lot of game theory stuff that seems to go on with how he communicates with people. And maybe I'm wrong. I would get in the room with him and be like, oh, never mind, you're a really down to earth guy. But I know based on like a pair of 1 minute interactions, I'm like, me and that dude would fight if we worked together. Like that would be a problem. Like that would just be like, the way you're talking to me right now doesn't really work for me. So if you have something you want to say, like you could say, like you've got a problem with the question I asked you, but don't sit there and be like, well, it's like you smug little. Now, again, this isn't a side of me I'm particularly proud of. That's me, right? I identify my own weaknesses. But here's the deal. This is the reason Brandon Beane didn't want this is because I would bet my life savings on this, okay? Because he told the owner this. He knows the owner's just repeating what he said. The owner wasn't in these rooms. He's just repeating what he's been told by the guy who won the power struggle, the guy who won the blame game. Mike Tanier wrote about it. Like both guys were reporting to him. The difference is during games, Brandon Beane was whispering to him. And when things get tough, always bet on the whisperer. That's what happened. And he knows that's not really what went down. And there's cameras everywhere and the internet is undefeated. And so that's why he didn't want that to happen. And what makes it so fascinating to me is, look, power struggles are not rare in the NFL.
Right.
These are multi-billion-dollar corporation franchisees, essentially. There are climbers everywhere in these buildings, including the one for the team you root for. You've got great people and you've got lousy people. Because it's just people. It's like any industry. I don't care if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're a banker, if you're a stock market trader, if you're hanging sheetrock. Although, see, the trades actually do a good job weeding stuff like this out because they're smaller companies and like you can see the work people do. But anyway, people are people. And that's what's so interesting to me. This was a power struggle. And what you're hearing an owner, and this is why owners generally shouldn't talk, he just bought hook, line, and sinker what he was told by the guy who was better in the meeting. Remember the joke I made once? I don't remember who it was about, where I was like, man, that dude must be incredible in meetings. Because you know what is as valuable, if not more so, as being good at your job? And this is not just the NFL. It's not even just the corporate world. It's any big company. What is as valuable as being good at your job? Convincing the boss that you're good at your job. if you're good at your job, but you are not good at convincing your boss you're good at your job, and now you're relying on the competency of your boss, and maybe your boss is really competent and sees through things, and there's a lot of great bosses out there, or maybe your boss is one of those guys that won a few power struggles and couldn't identify a good lawyer if one jumped up and bit him in the face. I'm using my field because it's an easy one to do, because I've known lawyers like this.
Seth, did you bite a hiring manager in the face?
Look, that's not important. And so
You're right. It's not. You're right. It's not important. I'm sorry. I was out of turn.
I'm telling BJ about this.
What
makes this
I assumed.
What makes this also interesting, and maybe it's not as interesting to other people. Maybe it interests me more because I've seen how in my state, sure. In my state, I've seen how the public defender's office works, because it's a statewide office. So you've got great attorneys there that are doing the job awesome. You know who gets promoted more often?
Not
the whisperers.
Yeah.
Because you know what?
Not those
Non-whisperers
guys.
are too busy doing their job to worry about climbing. People who are worried about climbing, not all the time. Sometimes you get people that are ambitious and competent, but it's rarer because you're so busy being ambitious, you don't have time to do the job. That's why what's so interesting to me about this is because it pulled back the curtain for a minute, because people love to say things like, oh, I'm sure you know more than these coaches, these whatever. Probably not in almost every situation, but don't think for a second.
This ain't rocket science, boys and girls.
Yeah, it's not. Don't think for a second that the usual corporate style backbiting is not going on just because this happens to be a game. They cover it with the sheen, and that's great. I love it. But it was so funny to me because normally this type of stuff, an owner getting, I think, a little bit snowed, was just suddenly on display for him to see. Now, did Sean McDermott deserve to get fired? Maybe. Yeah, he's made plenty of bad coaching decisions. He's done a good job, but not like a great job. And I mean, so that is what it is. I actually buy that. Changing the culture, that might matter. But the idea that it's like, it gave me such vibes that one on Parks and Rec, that rich girl that's like looking, I just want to say that I have never done anything wrong in my entire life. And her dad is like, I know, sweetheart, here's some money. That was this press conference. So that was amazing to me.
What was your favorite part, Josh? Because there's
I mean, the Keon Coleman interception is my crown jewel, because it really revealed it. The wizard really came out from behind the curtain to be like, excuse me, actually it wasn't his fault at all. It was the man I just fired.
The other part that I found to be really enjoyable is him saying, let me take you into the locker room. And I said, it's like, no. Let's go.
And every reporter's like, oh boy.
You might be getting to this, Nate. I don't want to take the most fun part of it from you, but I was surprised when he was like, yeah, so in the locker room, I went over to Josh Allen. He was sobbing. I tried to talk to him. He was inconsolable. He didn't look at me. He refused to acknowledge me, the owner of the football team, because he was sobbing so many tears. It's like, this is kind of weird. I was gonna text you guys this, and it felt like a Nate Taylor explanation of a locker room story. It was like, Josh Allen sprayed 3 spurts of cologne over his tears. It's like, Terry, are you sure?
I really was like, oh my God, he's doing my bit. Take me to the locker room. He's doing my bit. And then I was like, hey man, you're the owner, and he acknowledged? Yeah.
I want you to think about what that means.
Whoa! Why are you telling us this?
Why are you admitting this?
Why? He didn't say thanks for trying to consult. He didn't say any. Terry, why are you telling us this? Incredible.
That was one of my favorite parts too, because like, if you want to know. Nah, hey, who knows? Maybe Josh Allen was just having a tough time. But like, I've seen Chiefs players after really tough losses hug members of Clark's family when they're waiting for him, and they don't blow them off. I'm not saying it's a great thing to be like, oh yeah, I can't do that to the owner's daughter or wife or anyone.
Right.
But it does say something about like, I have some semblance of respect for this person. Whereas just ignoring someone flat out is hilarious.
I will tell you the reason why they're willing to hug Tammy or Gracie or Tavia is because those women care just as much as anybody else in the organization. Right. Like, they have just as much investment. They care just as much about you as, obviously their business and obviously trying to get the most out of playing. They've clearly, I don't know how every operation works, of course, but like, there's plenty of interactions between staff members, family members, before, during, after games. Like, they're on the field before, like, during warmups. Like, we all know that this matters. And that's why, again, we all love the sport, because it's so complex and it matters so much. And it's so hard to win, which is why it's one of the best feelings for anyone involved in this. And that goes along for even, our lady, Carly up in Indianapolis. Like, she got a legitimate taste of like a principal owner and went through an 8-week run that I'll never forget, kids, including trading away 2 first-round picks for a corner not named Deion Sanders. Anyway,
probably shouldn't have done that.
Probably should have done that. The whole point is,
and then signing a quarterback older than she is, I think,
and saying, no, he's our quarterback. Wait, he tore his Achilles? Oh. Anyway. But this is.
Oh my goodness! Sorry, I thought I was joking. Carly Ursay-Gordon and Phillip Rivers are both 45 years old. I genuinely thought. I just assumed she was probably a little bit older than that because she's in charge of the team now. And holy smokes!
You know who she was invested in way back in the day? Phillip Rivers. You know who got a call?
Phillip Rivers is 44. She's 45. Good Lord,
look,
that's
guys,
crazy.
These people are invested. So again, if Terry comes to you and says, damn, man, our season ended again in absolute heartbreak for everybody to see. Hey, bro, you got to acknowledge him. You got to acknowledge him because he might say something to these people.
He might.
He really might.
And so it was just so interesting. Poor Keon Coleman, who from all accounts has not been the way he should be, even including like putting in the work. But now all of a sudden that comes out.
Correct.
So here's something I want people to know. What you saw happen, it normally doesn't happen like this. You know what happens? What you hear is reports out of Baltimore is that there's some concerns about Lamar Jackson's, taking practice seriously enough. That's what you hear. You hear the whispers. That's one reason why, and that's why I appreciate Nate so much, because Nate does not shill. And I appreciate that about you, Nate. Where I
disagree. Nate is shrill often, Seth. Nate is shrill in almost every episode.
There are tweets that it's like, man, I've read articles where it's like, so it couldn't be more obvious who your source is right now.
Right.
Because
Yes.
It's kind of like, you guys remember, and you know what? Only the people like 40 and up are going to remember this. Nate, you remember when the Jordan rules came out? Mm-hmm. And Horace Grant was like, I wasn't Sam Smith's primary source. Like, what? You mean the one that looks like a saint or a victim in every single story? What? That's one reason. That's one way. You want to know who the source is? Look who is either the victim or the hero in every single story, and it's almost always the source. But here's the reason this is interesting. Because it peeled back the curtain of something that normally goes on behind closed doors, and you got a chance to actually see this man that was hired at the same time as McDermott just was like, it's going to be me or him, bro. And I'm sure that's what he would say if he was asked. He's a great dude, and he just felt like, well, it's him or me, and I got to feed my family.
And there's ramifications to this too, which is why you usually should have a president or GM and or the coach. That's why they're supposed to be tied together, because they're supposed to be invested in one another,
right? So
that there isn't a power struggle. And because the owner just said so many things out loud that I cannot believe he said out loud,
right?
Who wants that job, even though it is one of the most attractive jobs imaginable?
You get to coach Josh Allen.
Like, I just, it boggles my mind, and I'm fascinated to see, who comes out of like Joe Brady doesn't think he's going to get the job now because of this. Like, that's crazy, even though he's had a massive help in improving Josh Allen in terms of decision making before, unfortunately, a 4-turnover game that really the coach doesn't have a ton of say so in. I mean, is Brian Dable going to come through that door? I don't know, but they're going to have to work for Brandon Beane and Josh Allen and Terry. Not work together. That coach is coming in there and working for specific people, which could complicate where they want their franchise to go, even though they have a pretty good roster in base. But Sean McDermott was, I don't know, Seth, trying to do his job, trying to tell the truth, and was like, it might be nice if we had another good player, during the trade deadline, because this roster stinks.
And if only they knew who was responsible for that. Josh, I'm going to stop. Can I take us out though?
No, it's okay. No, we're the only Chiefs podcast in the universe doing an hour and 10 minutes, not even beginning to touch on draft content in any way whatsoever. On January 22nd. There's no other radio show in this city did an hour and 15 minutes of EB and Bills talk today. I just don't believe it. But Seth, you did think this would be a good time to call for a little ISO, and so you could get to a part of your story that I thought you were going to talk about 15 minutes ago. What's on your mind?
I just one thing Josh understands about me is that I'm a quarter Japanese and shaming works. I feel deeply ashamed. Like, I'm not going to change.
That's not why I do it.
Correct.
Just so everybody's clear, I don't have my little play sheet, and I don't have a play that says appeal to Seth's quarter Japanese guilt. That is not how I book things.
Right.
So, one reason this is so fascinating to me, and I think should be kind of fascinating to Chiefs fans, is because in a more grown-up franchise where people do things in more grown-up ways and not as backstabby, power struggles play out very differently. For example, maybe you can think of a coach and a GM that were hired the same offseason and were tied together and both reported to the owner. And then after several seasons of disappointing playoff exits, one of them got a contract extension. And the other one got fired. Oh, I'm sorry. Mutually parted ways. And then shortly thereafter, man, what is this? Ooh, picking these out of the air. This story about communication issues. This story about management style and organizational beliefs.
It's really late in the show for you to be purposefully vague about something you wrote about in black and white yesterday.
Oh, right. Here's the reality. And I don't think he did it in nearly as slimy a way as this seems like with the Bills. Look, you got to watch this play out. You got to watch this play out and fired a player by voicemail. Yeah, that came out only after John Dorsey was gone. John Dorsey lost a power struggle to Andy Reid. He wanted to be the sole voice. This couldn't be clearer. By the way, this is not me reporting something, okay? Let me be very clear. I don't do that. This is me looking at things and saying this is literally what happened. John Dorsey knows how to find talent, wanted to be the guy who I'm going to pick the players, you coach the players. Andy Reid, for pretty much his entire career, has said, I want you to pick the players, sure, within the parameters of what I need. And sometimes that doesn't work out. You got to watch what a power struggle play out looks like in a franchise run by grown-ups. But it's cool to see the curtain pulled back a little bit and say, oh man, so that means that these people that we cheer for had that meeting. It's like, oh man, we lost in the playoffs again. Travis Kelce saying stuff about Foot Locker and whatnot, like, man, this is bad. It's like, well, what are we going to do? I mean, it's multiple tough playoff exits in a row. Hey, you haven't won a playoff game other than the one in a while. Well, it's the roster. This is how it works. And you got to see it.
And one of the this is also what happened too. They found a way to use his skill set to execute the greatest trade in franchise history, and he was not with the organization months after said trade. because the guy
I've
behind
never-
the trade was promoted.
I've never won a power struggle about when this show ends. Or frankly, starts.